The world's deadliest hitman is forced out of retirement to rescue the one person he loves, but he has to take out the most dangerous criminals across the globe.
The principal I represent has an offer for you. You would like 3 men killed. Each death must look like an accident.
Your specialty, I believe. Seems that reports of your demise have been greatly exaggerated.
My principal could make that known to certain interested parties, which means that your new life here would end rather quickly.
Today, I'll be recapping the movie Mechanic Resurrection, where Jason Statham returns as Arthur Bishop, a master assassin who makes killing look like an art. But this time, the job isn't about money, it's about survival. Enjoy the story.
Let the men pray.
The movie starts on a peaceful morning. Arthur wakes up and goes through his routine. He turns on his music player, makes a cup of coffee, and reads the newspaper. He then exits his boat, just after arming a security device as a precaution, and rides his bike through the streets. Soon, he arrives at his usual restaurant, where he is escorted to his regular table. However, his quiet morning is quickly interrupted when a woman approaches him. She claims to have tracked him down, revealing that her employer requires him to eliminate 3 targets. Each death must appear as an accident, or she and her team will dismantle the quiet life he has built. Without hesitation, Arthur takes a quick photo of the woman with his phone before stranding her with the table. Then a brutal fight ensues as her men attack him, but he swiftly dispatches at least 6 of them. Soon, Arthur realizes that he is outnumbered, so he makes a daring escape by scaling a nearby wall. The woman and her remaining men immediately board a gondola, assuming they have him cornered, but Arthur is already on top of it. When they discover this, the woman fires at him before climbing to the top. But Arthur was quick to read situation, and at the perfect moment, he leapt off, landing on the glider flying below and escaped from his attackers. That night, he returns to find intruders ransacking his boat. Remaining calm, he uses his phone to detonate the hidden explosives and obliterate any evidence. Arthur then heads to a secret storage container, lifting a floorboard to reveal a concealed laptop. He uploads the woman's photo and prepares his arsenal. With his old passport burned, he is ready to return to his old ways. He immediately travels to southern Thailand by boat and arrives on a remote shore. There, he reconnects with an old friend, May. When he arrived, May assured him that no one had come looking for him. Although his hideout is a peaceful, tropical house, Arthur remains vigilant. Inside his room, he lifts another floorboard, uncovering additional passports, weapons, and gear. Very much determined to uncover the truth, he pays $10,000 for intelligence, which links the woman from earlier to a man named Raya Crane. The next morning, a woman named Gina visits May's shop, asking for a first aid kit. May notices bruises on Gina's body and immediately becomes suspicious. Concerned for her safety, she watches Gina leave, and later that evening, she noticed that the woman was being abused by a man on a boat. She immediately rushes to Arthur and urges him to intervene to help rescue the woman. Though he is initially reluctant, Arthur eventually gives in after May reminds him how he had once helped her. That night, he quietly rides his boat towards Gina's, killing its engine to avoid detection. When he boarded Gina's boat, he orders the man on board to stop abusing Gina, but when the assailant refuses, Arthur is forced to attack him. However, in the process, he accidentally kills the man. Realizing this, Arthur hands Gina over to May and proceeds to investigate the boat further. Inside the deck, to his shock, he discovers a pistol and a photo of himself. Realizing the implications, he takes the boat out to sea, douses it in petrol, and sets it ablaze with a flare, ensuring all other evidence is destroyed. Upon returning, he demands answers from Gina. Under duress, she confesses that Crane had blackmailed her into staging a distress call. Her mission was to lure Arthur in and contact Crane once he took the bait. To Arthur, this explained the events that had transpired. The next day, Arthur walks along the beach as Gina observes him. He later discovers that she runs a shelter for children who have survived horrifying crimes. He is also told by Gina that Crane has been threatening both the shelter and the children. Later on, while surveying the area, Arthur spots a boat in the distance, and his instincts tell him he is being watched. To mislead Crane's men on the boat, he plays along by strolling with Gina along the shore, making it appear that their plan is working. That evening, Arthur and Gina attend a local wedding. As the festivities unfold, Gina approaches him by the fire, expressing her gratitude and apologizing for dragging him into her predicament. Her only concern is the well-being of the children. Arthur, in turn, opens up about his past. He tells Gina that he, too, was an orphan sold into slavery, and eventually forced into a life of violence. He was shaped into a soldier, and Crane was also there from the beginning. But unlike Arthur, he never escaped. Their history runs deeper than Gina could have imagined, and Arthur knows that to protect both of them, he must finish what was started long ago. The two eventually spend the night together. In the early hours of the morning, Arthur tells Gina that he would take out the 3 men Crane had asked for, and then he would go for Crane himself. Before stepping out, Arthur gives Gina something to keep for him until he returns. It was a watch that was a gift from his father. Gina felt remorseful for Arthur, and she kissed him, hoping for the best. The next day, their moment together is violently interrupted when Crane's men, alongside the local police, storm the beach and abduct Gina. Arthur fights back, but he is quickly overpowered and held at gunpoint. Forced to comply, he is handed a phone before being escorted to Bangkok, where he is taken to a luxurious mansion. As he sits down, a hidden bomb activates beneath his chair. It is only then that the man behind his capture, Crane, finally reveals himself. Arthur immediately tells Crane his terms. He offers Crane one chance to walk away. Amused, Crane laughs and tosses a file to Arthur, revealing the 3 targets. The first is Krill, a mass murderer and arms dealer. He's currently locked up, which protects him from his numerous enemies. Crane hands Arthur a tracking capsule, which he must swallow only after confirming the kill. Meanwhile, Gina is taken to a high-class yacht, and Crane tells Arthur that her safety depends on his cooperation. Setting out, Arthur begins his preparation. He studies every aspect of the prison environment where Krill is held: the height of the walls, the positioning of security, even the presence of sharks in the water. Soon, he retrieves photos of the most wanted criminal in that area. So he scans through the pictures, and after finding one that resembles him, he replicates the man's tattoos and crafts a fake passport to fit. With his disguise complete, Arthur deliberately provokes the authorities, ensuring they arrest him. As planned, he is taken to the prison where Krill is being held while Crane's men monitor from the outside. Inside the prison, Arthur observes his target Krill, who is heavily guarded and remains untouchable. Other prisoners also eye him with hatred, many having lost loved ones to his brutal regime. Days later, Arthur spots one of the inmates hiding a knife, and he swiftly steals it to avoid anyone else killing Krill. Later that day, as an attacker rushes toward Krill with his weapon drawn, Arthur acts quickly and neutralizes the attacker. He immediately earns Krill's gratitude. Impressed, Krill invites him to dinner. Arthur initially declines, only to change his mind when Krill tells him that they can dine alone. That night, Arthur is escorted by some prison guards to Krill's fetish suite. As they talked, Krill recounts how the man Arthur killed was once his subordinate, who is now vengeful over the death of his brother. He arrogantly claims that once released, he will control Africa. Suddenly, Arthur seizes the moment. Acting quickly and in one swift motion, he puts Krill in a chokehold, covering his mouth with a towel to knock him out. He then mixes a lethal concoction and forces Krill to drink it. The poison acts quickly, ending Krill's life. Moments later, as the guards checks on their boss, Arthur deceives them, telling them that Krill is meditating. Meanwhile, as the truth eventually starts circulating, Arthur executes his escape. He moves to the back wall, placing explosive gum along the back wall. Then he swallows the tracking device Crane had given him and coats himself in shark repellent, waiting for the right moment to act. Just as the explosion rips through the wall, the alarms are set off and Arthur, while dodging bullets fired at him, leaps off the island prison into the ocean. Moments later, Crane's men locate his signal and retrieve him from the water. On board the boat, Arthur immediately demands to speak to Gina. Crane grants the call, allowing Arthur to check on her well-being. She reveals that he has only 36 hours to eliminate his next target, Adrian Cook. Meanwhile, Crane observes Gina closely as he notices a watch on her wrist, the one that had once belonged to Arthur's father. With a smirk, Crane realizes he has found Arthur's weakness. In the meantime, Arthur's next target is no ordinary man. Adrian Cook is a mining billionaire, residing at the top of a 58-story skyscraper. His obsession is matched only by his ego, as his fortress in the sky is practically impenetrable: bomb-proof walls, retina scanners, facial recognition, and an army of guards. Taking out Cook will require a plan more meticulous than ever before. So, Arthur devises a plan to infiltrate Adrian's high-security penthouse. He scouts the building and finds a lower-level unit available for sale. Using this as a cover, he distracts the realtor just long enough to snap a picture of the key. With the blueprint in hand, he studies the structure meticulously. Next, he assembles a small homemade explosive, concealing it within a screw, just enough to shatter reinforced glass. Then, he dressed as a maintenance worker and entered the floor below Adrian's suite. He removes a window and begins his climb up the skyscraper. He eventually reaches the pool level and, using a powerful suction device, suspends himself 58 stories above the ground. Carefully, he moves along the glass and positions himself precisely at the exact place he had planned. He then secures the explosive screw into place. Adrian, who had just dived into the pool at this point, notices Arthur too late. Seconds later, Arthur deploys the bomb and swiftly drops down to the level below just as the pool glass shatters. The water pours out, and Adrian falls to his death. Arthur immediately vanishes, and soon, the news reports Adrian's sudden death. When Crane hears of this, he is stunned at how Arthur had pulled it off. Meanwhile, Crane's men prepare a video call with Arthur for Gina. But she subtly adjusts the camera angle, revealing a boat in the background. Arthur catches the clue instantly. However, the henchmen soon realize the mistake and cut off the video. Meanwhile, Arthur is already in action. He contacts the harbor master's office to make inquiries about the ship's coordinates and immediately boards a helicopter. But when he arrives at the location, the vessel is missing. He tells the pilot to fly a little more offshore as he scans the ocean for any signs. Soon, he spots the boat and Arthur leaps from the chopper into the water. Emerging undetected, he infiltrates the ship, moving like a ghost in the night. One by one, he eliminates the guards, taking down another trio with his silenced pistol. As he advances toward Gina's location, he engages in another brutal firefight with Crane's men. He utilizes his surroundings efficiently to execute his plans, but just as he's closing in, the men regroup and pin him down in a crossfire. Out of bullets, he had to rely on sheer combat skill as he executed devastating moves to neutralize his attackers. Despite his agility, he is eventually subdued and taken to Crane, who issues an ultimatum for Arthur to eliminate the third target. But instead of responding, Arthur seizes an opportunity and unleashes another attack on Crane's men. He then makes a calculated escape and dives into the water. He was already prepared as he retrieved a hidden breathing mask and vanished once more. Days later in Bulgaria, Arthur sets his sights on his final target, Max Adams, who is an arms dealer with an impenetrable fortress. Max's compound is fortified with advanced security and even military-grade submarines. Through careful investigation, Arthur eventually uncovers Crane's true endgame, which was seizing control of the global weapons market by eliminating his competition. So, without hesitation, Arthur initiates his plan. He heads to a hospital rooftop and strategically shoots a man in the leg. The injury prompts an emergency airlift, and as the helicopter arrives, Arthur discreetly hides on the helicopter and escapes with the emergency team. Upon landing at Max's compound, he quickly exits the chopper. Then he disables the security cameras and systematically dismantles the guards. Finally, he infiltrates the control room and neutralizes the personnel there before locating an elevator leading to the panic room. Arthur, who is anticipating Max's escape, sabotages the elevator. However, Max manages to enter his panic room. What he doesn't realize is that Arthur is already waiting inside. Max, who is fully aware of Crane's treachery, listens as Arthur presents an alternative, a survival plan. Seeing the logic in the plan, Max agrees. Together, they stage Max's death, making it convincing enough for Crane to believe the mission is complete. Arthur then provides Max with a breathing apparatus and orchestrates an elaborate plot. The news outlets soon confirm Max's death, and Crane immediately orders his men to move in and seize Max's submarines. Arthur seizes this opportunity as he returns to the compound and set up a series of lethal traps in preparation for Crane's men. His mission isn't over. The real reckoning is about to begin. As the heavily armed troops arrive, they quickly spread out and secure the area. Crane watches from a distance and anticipates Arthur's next move. Without warning, Arthur springs into action, triggering a series of traps that eliminate several of Crane's mercenaries. Utilizing an array of weapons, grenades, rifles, and whatever he can find, Arthur systematically takes down his enemies. In one of his attempts, Arthur throws a grenade directly at the leader of the troops and successfully reduces him to rubble. Crane, who was watching the carnage from afar, was not pleased with how things were turning out, and he eventually goes to get Gina. Meanwhile, Arthur wastes no time and swiftly escapes using an underwater device and heads toward Crane's location. However, Crane has anticipated this, and he uses Gina as bait. He closely monitors the security cameras, determined to track Arthur's movements. But Arthur is always one step ahead. Swiftly emerging from the water, he abandons his old principle of avoiding revenge. With calculated precision, he disables a security camera, leaving Crane vulnerable. Then, with high efficiency, Arthur advances toward Gina, eliminating every obstacle in his path. Gina attempts to escape, but is shot in the stomach by one of the men, and Crane takes her hostage. As Arthur engages in another firefight, he strategically uses an enemy as a shield before neutralizing all remaining threats. Realizing he is losing control, Crane initiates the boat's self-destruct sequence. As time starts to run out, Arthur eventually locates Gina in the control room as he also discovers the bomb. Acting fast, he places Gina inside an escape pod and releases it just before the explosion. Crane is determined to finish Arthur, but Arthur's unmatched combat skills prove too much for him. The two exchange gunfire until their ammunition runs out, forcing them to engage in a hand-to-hand fight. Arthur dominates the fight, and Crane, enraged, blames everything on their past, on the betrayal from their childhood. The fight continues, with Arthur sustaining a heavy hit. Crane swings a metal chain wildly, but Arthur gains control, using the very chain to restrain him. With mere seconds left before the explosion, Arthur secures Crane to the boat, ensuring his doom. Just as Arthur tries to make his final escape, Crane screams his name before the vessel erupts into a massive explosion. From a distance, Gina watches the wreckage in devastation. Soon, a rescue boat arrives, and emergency services declare there were no survivors from the boat. Max, who is observing the aftermath, remarks that even legends must fall. Sometime later, Gina returns to Cambodia and resumes her work at the Children's Center. In a heartfelt letter, she expresses gratitude to May while silently mourning Arthur's supposed death. Then, as she carries on with her daily routine, she suddenly froze in her tracks, unable to believe what she's seeing. Standing before her is Arthur, very much alive. Their eyes meet as they exchange a knowing smile. Elsewhere, Max reviews the security footage from the wreckage. That was when the revelation dawned on him. Arthur had managed to use a hidden compartment on the ship to escape. Amused by Arthur's brilliance and innovation, Max lets out a knowing laugh as he declares, "The legend lives on." And that's the incredible story of the mechanic resurrection. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more movie recaps. Thanks for watching.